All right. I'm going to take a break. If you're just joining us, I am Josh with American Gnome Productions. I have been playing Atomic Heart for quite a few hours now. About 5 hours total broadcast time. Like, not just Atomic Heart, but quite a bit of Atomic Heart. Um, and I need to take a break real quick. When we come back, I will take a dab. And yeah, but I need to stretch and smoke a cigarette. We're moving quite along, quite well in Atomic Heart. It's fun. The puzzles are a little bit irritating sometimes. Getting stuck is even more irritating sometimes. But overall, it's a pretty good experience. Um, yeah. Oh. Ooh. Yeah, I have a cool cat and a spicy meatball. It's awesome little mix. You know, in Evil Dead 2, where the wind is literally howling through the trees. That's what it's like outside. It's craziness, absolute craziness. Take my coffee with me. It's cold as fuck out there. Alright, I'm actually going to cut the game for the night. Let's go ahead and save.
Saving data.
Yeah, because I've been playing for quite a long time. Yeah, Atomic Heart's a really good game. Like, really good. And it's not particularly hard. I haven't died very many times, and most of the time, my deaths are self-imposed, like things that I just fucked up on. Okay, so still got one more edit to go in this last video. Ugh. Alright, so since that is the way it is, and I am done gaming for today, it's already almost 1 o'clock, and I'm about ready to turn in here in a minute. But I do want to do okay, let's do. Because I really love this channel. This channel. It's great. Ooh, bizarre medical. Yeah, I really. You know what? No, I want to do the 80s. So, just to kick things off, let's start with the year I was born, 1980.
The 1980s. It was a totally rad decade that was filled with neon, yuppies, and a whole lot of Aquanet. Welcome to Fantasy Heights. We're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 80s. This
In the
is
80s.
Timeline.
This is Timeline. I fucking love this series. It's one of my favorites.
We're starting at the beginning with the year 1980. But before we get moving, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below your favorite 80s memory. Okay then, are you ready to relive 1980? 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated. We're gonna do it. Coming out of the disco-filled 70s, the U.S. economy was sagging. Americans were being held hostage in Iran, and the minimum wage was $3.10.
Oof.
But this new decade started off with some promise. Gary Larson's The Far Side made its debut the day before, on New Year's Eve. The year ahead for 1980 would feature many new additions and changes to the culture. The world was about to see its first hot pocket, the rise of the Rubik's Cube, and the dawn of a new
Hey,
political
we've added $9 and was it $9.70?
This is 1980.
$8.70.
The decade wouldn't start off
Since
so
then?
great for Beatle Paul McCartney when he was arrested January 16th in Japan for marijuana possession.
What do you think about marijuana? It was a big mistake.
McCartney would stay in a jail for 9 whole days, and it was January 25th when Paul was found and then quickly deported.
I'd like to say sorry about the mistake there, and hope we can come back sometime and not disappoint you next time, and have a good time.
Staying with the music theme, Pink Floyd's 11th album, The Wall, hit #1 on the Billboard charts and would go on to sell over 1.2 million copies in the first 2 months. The album would eventually sell over 30 million copies, which made it the best-selling double album ever. The movie for The Wall wouldn't be released for another 2.5 years, till August 13th, 1982, where at the movies critics Siskel and Ebert gave the film 2 thumbs up.
The Rams had 2 defensive backs covering Swan and a linebacker blitzing Bradshaw, and still they could not damage the throw or prevent the catch.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are the champions of the National Football League.
1980 did ignite what would eventually become a decade-long rivalry of wanting to beat the Soviets at anything. America rose to the challenge at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York in late February, when the underdog U.S. men's hockey team took out our Cold War foe, the not quite evil empire USSR, beating them 4-3. That term evil empire wouldn't be coined until 1983 by Ronald Reagan. That's an extra bonus fun fact for you Rage Against the Machine fans and or New York Yankee haters out there. But no matter what we're calling the Soviets, the budding U.S.-USSR sports rivalry would have to wait. Well, Arnold, that's because the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and President Jimmy Carter declared the USA would not participate in the Summer Olympics, which were being held conveniently in Moscow on July 19th, 1980.
You know, working in the industry that I work in the hospitality industry, and specifically in retail, specialty retail, and even more specifically in the smoke shop business. It's always nice to run into people from your past, but sometimes it gets a little weird because you have memories from when you were during that time period of your life, and you feel weird about those people because, I don't know. they weren't ever really your. I mean, I don't know. Like sometimes it's weird meeting people from your past that you used to work with, and your new, meeting them in a new place of employment. It just, I don't know. I was thinking about that.
80. In between all this Cold War tit for tat, some more chilly news as snow fell in Florida in March. This is also notable because this is probably the least weirdest thing ever to happen in the state of Florida. Now for some weird true crime. In mid-March, John Favre's life took a sad turn when he accidentally struck and killed a boy on a mini bike. This is significant because that boy happened to be Frank Gotti, son of reputed mobster boss John Gotti. Flash forward to later on in the year, on July 28th, when Favre disappeared, never to be seen again. It would be reported later that one of Gotti's henchmen took Favre out. Not only did they whack the poor guy, but also pulled a Walter White on him, allegedly dissolving Favre in a vat of acid. Yikes.
Yeah, that's brutal. How's everybody doing on Twitch? I don't often pay attention to the Twitch stream manager, but sometimes I'll check in. Thank you for joining. There is
none more as big as the episode of Dallas entitled "A House Divided."
There are some previews at the beginning of the stream, and I've been playing Atomic Heart for the last couple hours, and right here before bed, I'm going to do some easy watching and explore the 80s a little bit before I go to bed.
Dastardly Christian who had done it. Get me the police. I knew it. This episode of Dallas was the most watched regular season TV episode ever. Switching to the radio dial, April 21st,
go get
Howard
Bobby
Stern's
Bull.
voice first makes itself heard, hitting the airwaves on station WWWW in Detroit, Michigan.
Give me a break. My wife, we want to have a baby. All I'm asking for is a gig. If you stop listening, I'm in big trouble. Big trouble.
We go on the same day to Boston. And hey, congratulations, and cool that Rosie Ruiz won the 83rd running of the Boston Marathon. All is fine and dandy until Rosie is later disqualified when it's discovered that she only ran the very last mile out of the 26-mile race.
It's not fair.
Not cool, Rosie. Not cool. 3 days later, on April 24th, we go to the Middle East. During military Operation Eagle Claw, a rescue mission intended on freeing American hostages held in Iran, 3 of the 8 rescue helicopters had mechanical problems, and the mission was aborted. During the withdrawal, 1 helicopter collided with a plane, killing 8 American soldiers.
Shit.
With the help of Dr. Lottery Balls, Nick Perry, the host of the Pennsylvania lottery scandal, helped rig the TV drawing. The numbers 666 were picked, giving a record payout of $3.5 million, of which $1.2 million went to those in on the scam. April showers not only bring May flowers, but also some new weird historic slang. Chicago Magazine would be the first to introduce the word yuppie into our culture, which appeared in print in their May publication.
Hello?
Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once.
We all remember this part in Goodfellas.
Please, don't you move, you motherfucker! I'll blow your brains out!
That's because on May 11th, the real Henry Hill was arrested for trafficking narcotics. This arrest would prove to be pivotal because Hill would turn rat, becoming an FBI informant and narking out his mom's buddies and, well...
Oh yeah, that's what Goodfellas was based on.
Thank God, too, because Goodfellas is a really good movie.
It's been a learning experience, but I enjoy challenges, and it's a challenge tonight to see what I can do.
It's mid-May. Los Angeles Laker rookie point guard Irvin Magic Johnson stepped in to play center when starting center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was too banged up to play in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. The 6'9" Magic would eventually play every position in that game, all while scoring 42 points, grabbing 15 boards, and dishing out 7 assists, helping the Lakers win the NBA championship 4-2 over the Philadelphia 76ers.
So what do you have that makes you perform like this in these championship games?
Well, I don't know. Just, I love to win.
The city of Philadelphia would get some redemption later in the year. As far as Kareem goes, we'll see him in a minute. Them Duke boys were about as popular as a cat's tail in a room full of rocking chairs. Their show was the second highest rated show on television in 1980. Yip, 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 yip. Ah! We next land in the Northwest, in Skamania County, Washington, some 70 miles north of Portland, where on May 18th, Mount St. Helens erupted, making it the most disastrous volcanic eruption in U.S. history. Ash
And
as far as 10 miles
to Mungo 2018, thank you for following me. I appreciate that quite a bit. It means a lot. Tell your friends.
Video games and pop culture can mark this point.
I have Windows Game Pass for Xbox and all that jazz. So I have access to a lot more games to try. And I will be putting out more content. I have a huge library of games, and I'm actually I might have to get another hard drive for my computer.
The game is so popular, the song Pac-Man Fever made it all the way
or
up
maybe,
to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March of 1982.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to get another hard drive.
Over 1 million copies in 82 alone. For a song
or a bigger hard drive.
The 80s. Weird times.
We'll see how that goes.
Late May of 1980 would feature some now iconic movies.
I am your father. Here's Johnny.
June would be the birth of the 24/7 news cycle as CNN hit the airwaves for the first time.
Good evening, I'm David Walker.
And I'm Lois Hart. Now here's the news.
CNN's dominance of cable would spawn an array of sibling news channels, as well as competitors, and change.
And if you'd like to know where I create like some of these backgrounds, you go to Night Cafe, Night Cafe Studio, I think it's called.
Comic Richard Pryor, while freebasing drugs and drinking 151 proof rum, maybe accidentally set himself on fire. After running around the streets, literally at fuego, Pryor was subdued by police and rushed to the hospital.
Yeah, nightcafe.studio.
Pryor would use this as material for his comedy concert film Live on the
they take care of you
Strip.
too. You get lots of benefits for joining up, and you get to do a lot of stuff right out the gate.
Film for almost the entire decade. Almost. We'll see in a minute who upset JoJo Dancer.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Actually, I kind of like this one too.
Not a century earlier, but the national anthem of Canada officially became "O Canada." We stand on guard for thee.
LA departure frequency 123.9.
Ah, there's Kareem again.
Roger. All right. Clear for Vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Tower radio clearance, over.
To San Diego on July 2nd, when jam band Grateful Dead members Bob Weir and Mickey Hart witnessed police arresting a fan for possession of marijuana. The two were not so dead chill seeing this and caused such a ruckus that they, along with their manager Danny Rifkin, were arrested and booked for suspicion of inciting a riot. Paulie D. of Jersey Shore was born on this date, July 5th, 1980. No reason, we just really wanted to let you know. Your folks were always saying how much harder things used to be. That might be true for thunderstorms, because on July 15th, one massive storm crushed western Wisconsin.
And speaking of which,
now finalized property damage estimates from the storm, and the figures are overwhelming.
Racking up for $250 million in damage. We go to Australia. It's August when Lindy Chamberlain's 9-week-old baby, Azaria, was allegedly dragged away from a family campsite by a dingo. However, Lindy and her husband, Michael Chamberlain, were both initially convicted for their child's death. The case made global headlines and was an unintentional creation of 90s humor when we flash forward to November 27, 1991, and the Dingo Ate Your Baby episode of Seinfeld titled The Stranded and becoming part of the pop culture lexicon.
My fiancé, I'm looking for him. I have lost my fiancé, the poor baby.
Maybe the dingo ate your baby.
The former Rockets center was born on this day. Good news for his mother, he wasn't born 7'6". In late September, it was a sad day for rock. Following a day where John Bonham, Led Zeppelin's Wonder drummer and notorious party animal, downed a reported 40 measures of vodka in 12 hours, the famed percussionist went and passed out, only to never wake up again. Bonham went on to play that great drum solo in the Cosmos, perishing from asphyxiation, from choking on his own vomit.
Bang.
Flash forward to 2 months later, on December 4th. when surviving band members Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and John Paul Jones decided Zeppelin without Bonham just wouldn't be Zeppelin.
The cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. And it's a story about us. How we achieved our present understanding of the cosmos, how the cosmos has shaped our evolution and our culture, and what our fate may be.
It's September 28th, and sex therapist Dr. Ruth Westheimer's radio show, Sexually Speaking, hit airwaves in New York City.
Question.
Yeah.
I'm having a relationship with a cousin of mine.
Do you use contraceptives?
By 1983, Dr. Ruth's show was the top-rated radio show in the Big Apple. And by 1984, the Dr. Ruth show would mark its syndication starting point.
My show, the only one that touches him is me.
Way to rebound and win, Philly.
This team is just an unbelievable baseball team right now. We could beat anybody in the world.
It's hard to mention the 80s and not talk about the Gipper. Former Western actor and star of Bedtime for Bonzo, Ronald Reagan became President-elect Reagan after defeating incumbent President Jimmy Carter. As you'll see in some coming videos, Reagan's jelly bean-stained fingerprints will be all over the decade to come.
Mexico is fighting cancer through.
Hey, how you doing? Whoever just joined in. I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions. Nice to meet you. We're watching Weird History. A look back at the year of my birth, 1980. It was a great year.
Starting point of base jumping. Parachutists first jumped off the 876-foot bridge, then presumably landed gently in the New River.
It really was.
We go
It was a
down
great
to
view.
the Superdome in New Orleans. It's round 7 of their second bout between Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. A frustrated Duran, unable to keep up with the faster and craftier Sugar Ray, simply turned around and threw in his own towel, saying,
You didn't have to dip out that fast, you know.
Stunning the boxing world.
I'm not gonna put you on the spot or anything. Just,
Leonard was a winner by TKO. America's dad, Tom Hanks, got his big chance on the sitcom Bosom Buddies, a show about two men dressing up like women in order to save money on rent.
Look at that, a show about drag queens before any, I mean, look, like we were, I mean, in some ways we were a lot more progressive back in the day than we are now.
Turkey has the same amount of nutrition as a T-bone steak. But if you compare the two packages like I did, you'll see the steak fits under your clothes a whole lot easier.
In 1988, Eddie Murphy's Raw would go on to top Richard Pryor's Live on the Sunset Strip for highest-grossing concert film.
Lennon was shot and killed at about 11 o'clock last night outside his apartment building.
December would be a punch in the gut to the world's soul when Beatle John Lennon was gunned down outside the Dakota Hotel in New York City. Lennon's album, Double Fantasy, came out 2 weeks prior. Lennon had actually signed a copy of that album to his assailant, Mark David Chapman, just hours earlier. The world mourned. Flash forward to 1985, when a memorial for Lennon called Strawberry Fields made its debut on October 9th. That date would have also celebrated Lennon's 45th birthday.
I'm sorry, these aren't my working clothes.
No, it's not that. It's just that I was expecting someone a little different.
It's December 12th.
That dude was gonna be Indiana Jones, like, until he had a prior commitment to that show. Like, he was down for the part, and he probably would have gotten it.
There's no way I'm going down. I don't go down for nobody.
Listen, why did you have to make it so hard on yourself?
And that's how 1980 ended. In with a smoking Beetle, out with a raging bull. 1981 was just around the corner, and it would be a year filled with deadly events, high-profile marriages, and the emergence of the video game. But that's for next time. Good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
So what do you think? What was your fondest memory of 1980? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other only about the 1980s videos. Until then, this has been Weird History's Timeline. John Lennon's murder.
Let's go to 1981.
It's 1981. Early
Nothing against Mr. Lennon. I'm just
Okay, units, travel plans. I need to be in New York on Monday, LA on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, LA on
doing
Thursday,
the years.
Got it. Well, maybe not that fast. Just a year into the budding 80s, 1981 would see a slew of new heroes.
So I'm sure to get most of the vitamins I need.
Iconic catchphrases.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
And some of our most important cultural
I missed that
discoveries.
commercial.
What'd you say this was again?
Today, we're chronicling 1981 from January to December and talking about the news, culture, sports and entertainment, and all that was weird in the year. This is Timeline. Today, it's all 1981.
Wow, dude.
But before we get
Really?
going, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below your favorite 80s memory. Now,
Excuse me, I'll be right back.
to get on to 81.
What's happening?
This is 1981. On January 12th, Dynasty premiered, and America was introduced to the Carringtons, a filthy rich family from Denver, Colorado.
Good evening, Mrs. Carrington. And how was your day, Ben?
Dynasty was created to counter another show about filthy rich people, with the wildly successful Dallas on CBS. Flash forward to December 4th, CBS would counter ABC's counter with Lorenzo Lamas and the show Falcon Crest, a show about filthy rich people, but this time they're in Napa Valley.
Chase is of the opinion that vineyard is his to keep.
You know you ought to let me handle this.
On January 16th, while claiming he was walking out of a Detroit bar, ex-heavyweight champion Leon Spinks was jumped and cold-cocked by robbers.
Police say Spinks reported his assailants left him naked.
When Leon regained his senses, he found out the muggers had stolen not only $45,000 of jewelry, but also his gold teeth. We're not sure if they got the fillings as well. Sticking with boxing, 3 days later on January 19th, the greatest of all time might apply to Muhammad Ali's non-boxing life, when on January 19th, the ex-heavyweight champ literally talked a man off the ledge. It was in Los Angeles when a despondent man threatened to jump off a high-rise building. Ali drove down to the building and talked to the man, telling him, "You're my brother. I love you, and I couldn't lie to you." Soon after, Ali put his arm around the man and guided him back inside. We'll see Ali again by the end of the year. On January 20th, Iran released 52 Americans who had been held hostage for 444 days, just minutes after the presidency had been passed from Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. The hostages were placed on a plane in Tehran as Reagan delivered his inaugural address.
Some of the hostages are physically and mentally tired. 2 of them are said to be having difficulty walking.
With gull-wing doors and a stainless steel body, the DeLorean was probably the most 80s car ever.
The DeLorean. Gull-wing doors rise effortlessly, beckoning you inside.
The car would be forever etched in our pop culture hearts.
Hell yeah, the fucking DeLorean is
transformed the DeLorean into a time machine, when Back to the Future premiered on July 3rd, 1985.
88 miles per hour!
February proved that life is indeed a stage, as the Canadian power rock trio, Rush, released moving pictures on the 12th. After this, air drumming would never be the same. As the SNL cast took the main stage for their goodnights on February 21st, Charlene Tilton asked Charlie Rocket how he felt being shot. It was a callback to an earlier Dallas skit during the show, where Rocket played the recently assassinated J.R. Ewing.
I'll get that Charlie Rocket if it's the last thing I ever do.
Rocket told Tilton,
"Oh man, this is the first time I've been shot. Right, I'll let you know.
Whoops. Rocket was fired before the season finale. On March 30th, in an attempt to impress actress Jodie Foster, John F. Hinckley attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Reagan was shot in the left lung, with the bullet just missing his heart. In the melee, Hinckley also shot a Secret Service agent, as well as Press Secretary James Brady, who was hit in the head and critically wounded. James Brady's injury would eventually turn into law.
12 years ago, my life was changed forever by a disturbed young man with a gun.
On November 30th of 1993, President Bill Clinton signed the Brady Bill into law.
Don't tell me this bill will not make a difference. That is not true.
On April 13th, the Washington Post's Janet Cook was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for a feature she wrote titled Jimmy's World. It was the harrowing profile of the life of little Jimmy, an 8-year-old heroin addict. She described the needle marks freckling the baby smooth skin of his thin brown arms. Shocking, yes. It would have been, if it was true. 2 days after the prize had been awarded, the Post admitted they were duped. Cook resigned and returned her Pulitzer. AAA baseball teams, the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings, played the longest game in professional baseball history. The pitching duel went 33 innings and lasted 8 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow.
32 innings were played. By 4 a.m., the players were delirious from exhaustion. With 19 fans left in the bleachers at 4:07 a.m., the game was stopped. The 33rd and final inning was played several months later. Pawtucket won the game 3-2 on June 23, 1981. On April 24th, the Center for Disease Control records that Ken Horn, resident of San Francisco, had Kaposi sarcoma. Later in 1981, the CDC would go back and correct Horn's medical records, retroactively identifying him as the first patient of the AIDS epidemic in the U.S. On May 1st, Billie Jean King didn't so much come out of the closet as she was kicked out by the woman she had a 10-year romantic relationship with while she was married to a man. King, already a world-class tennis champion with 5 Wimbledon titles under her belt, when on May 2nd, Marilyn Barnett filed a palimony lawsuit for lifetime support.
But I would never out somebody. Oh my God, that's just horrible.
On May 1st, American Airlines was the first.
Bitch.
When they launched American Airlines Advantage, the first frequent flyer loyalty program. Money can't buy life were Bob Marley's last words to his son Ziggy. Marley passed from skin cancer. The melanoma had spread from under his toe, a symptom of already existing cancer, not by an injury during a football match as the incorrect reports first stated. Marley was only 36 years old when he passed. Flash forward to 3 years later on May 8th of 1984, when Bob Marley's Legend would be released, which would end up in just about every college student's music collection ever. On May 13th, in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City, Mehmet Ali Agca attempted to assassinate Pope John Paul II. The Pope was struck 4 times, suffering severe blood loss. Agca was immediately apprehended. Willing to turn the other cheek, the Pope visited Agca in the prison cell he was to spend the rest of his life. They spoke privately for some time, and the Pope said they became friends. The Pope later requested Agca's pardon in 2000, which Italian officials granted.
He said this week that he'd applied for Polish citizenship, but had been turned down.
Originally written in 1974 for Rod Stewart, Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes was hit #1 on
Nobody
May 16th
wants to house the
and
guy
stayed
that
in the
fucking
charts
tried to
for
shoot the
next
fucking
9
Pope.
weeks.
You'll find married ribs in the middle is swimming in sauce.
Very few fast food culinary creations have quite the lore around them as the McRib, a creation of both an animal scientist and a fine dining chef. The McRib is the fast food white whale, appearing seemingly at random and disappearing just as quickly. The McRib would go on to be on and off McDonald's menu for years, first vanishing in 1985.
Here for a limited time.
But returning in 1994.
This May, it's McDonald's McRib sandwich.
Then doing farewell tours in 2005.
It's McRib time.
McRib is back.
And 2007.
It's back.
The McRib. It's hard to be sad about something that's gone when it's never really left. A daredevil by the name of Daniel Goodwin climbed the Sears Tower in Chicago, all while wearing a Spider-Man costume on May 25th. Goodwin was able to climb the 1,454-foot, 110-story building, not from being bitten by a radioactive spider, but by using suction cups and hooks. After he triumphantly reached the summit of Sears, Goodwin was greeted with handcuffs. Spider-Man was charged with misconduct, criminal trespass, and criminal damage to property.
Dan Goodwin has captured the imagination of the public as well as Sears.
The month of June featured a mix of famous media moments.
Sometimes I feel I'm scared to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line. Short flew up.
The Solar Challenger succeeded in completing the 165-mile flight across the English Channel on July 7th. It was the world's first solar-powered airplane to do so. Oh, how sweet it is. Because on the same day, artificial sweetener, or aspartame, was approved by the FDA. 2 days later, on July 9th, the barrel-throwing gorilla, Donkey Kong, made his debut appearance in arcades across America. Creator Shigeru Miyamoto was tasked with redesigning a game called Radar State, based on the love triangle between Popeye, Olive Oyl, and Bluto. Nintendo couldn't get the rights to the characters, so the game was repositioned as a gorilla, a carpenter, and his girlfriend. Flash forward to 1982 when Donkey Kong Jr. debuted. The carpenter would be changed to a plumber, and his name was switched to Mr. Video, then Jumpman, and finally Mario. Extra fun fact, Mario was named after Mario Segale, the landlord of a Nintendo warehouse in the Seattle area.
Kurt Russell stars as Snake Plissken in John Carpenter's science fiction action classic, Escape from New York.
On July 17, 1981, two walkways collapsed at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, one directly above the other. They crashed onto an event with approximately 1,000 guests, which was being held in the hotel's lobby, killing 114 people and injuring 216 others. The OG royal wedding on July 29th was between Lady Diana Spencer and Prince Charles, which was watched by a global TV audience estimated around 750 million people. This storybook franchise would last until August 28th, when Di and Charles's divorce settlement was finalized. Tragedy would strike almost a year to the day later when Di perished in an automobile accident in Paris in late August of 1997.
The Mercedes 600 carrying the princess, her Egyptian companion Dodi El-Fayed, emerged from the tunnel a complete crumpled wreck.
If any network defined the 80s, it was MTV.
This is it. Welcome to MTV Music Television.
On August 1st, they began their run. Back when they actually featured music videos, the network debuted the appropriately titled video, Video Killed the Radio Star.
Brooke Shields, Martin Hewitt, Endless Love.
On August 3rd, 1981, the Air Traffic Controllers Union declared a strike. Reagan declared their strike a peril to national safety and ordered them back to work.
If they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Only 1,300 of the nearly 13,000 controllers returned. How did Reagan respond? 2 days later, on August 5th, Reagan fired the 11,345 striking air traffic controllers who had ignored the order and banned them from federal service for life. The great communicator indeed. Staying with Reagan, 1 day later, on August 4th, 1981, Oliver North was assigned to the White House's National Security Council, where he served as a lobbyist.
Man, you ban somebody from working in their line, in their profession for life. Like, you can no longer do what you do.
The IBM personal computer, commonly known as the IBM PC, was introduced on August 12, 1981.
IBM made its personal computer to help a person be more productive.
Man, I remember these
If your family
commercials.
owned one in the 80s, you were considered a neighborhood legend.
You know, who knows? It may be the world's biggest backyard fence to talk over before long.
The first woman to the highest court in the United States, Sandra Day O'Connor, was nominated to the Supreme Court by President Reagan on August 19th.
The only significant opposition has come from abortion opponents.
The subject of abortion is a valid one, in my view, for legislative action, subject to any constitutional restraints or limitations.
Hanna-Barbera, who shaped America's animated lives with Yogi Bear, the Jetsons, and Hong Kong Phooey, struck blue gold with the introduction of Papa Smurf, Brainy, and Smurfette on September 12, 1981. La 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 la. Now try to get that out of your head.
I'll get you. I'll get all of you if it's the last thing I ever do.
Switching channels, 2 days later on September 14th.
What you are witnessing is real, the People's Court.
The Honorable Judge Joseph Wapner.
If you had the dog on a leash.
Rusty, his faithful bailiff.
I've seen it on a bull in court.
And mild-mannered announcer Doug Llewellyn.
Don't resort to taking the law into your own hands.
For the debut lineup for the long-running People's Court. Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher and rookie phenom Fernando Valenzuela threw his 8th shutout of the season, tying a 68-year-old record set in 1913 by Rev Russell of the Chicago White Sox. Recorded by Olivia Newton-John and released as a single on September 28th, Physical not only flew to #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, it stayed there for 10 weeks, an 80s record. Sticking with music, a relatively unknown multi-instrumentalist by the name of Prince was the opener for the Rolling Stones at the Coliseum in Los Angeles. The Sun-Baked Stones audience was rowdy, booing Prince off the stage, pelting him with bottles, fruit, coins, and food. Flash forward to June 25th, 1984, when Purple Rain would debut. The album would go on to sell over 17 million copies throughout the 80s. On October 20th, the Weather Underground organization, commonly known as the Weather Underground, had 3 of its members arrested after the robbery of a Brinks armored car at the Nanuet Mall in Nanuet, New York. The trio stole $1.6 million in cash, killed a Brinks guard, 2 police officers, and wounded several bystanders. Although Lars Ulrich met James Hetfield 5 months earlier when he answered an ad the drummer placed in The Recycler, looking for other metal musicians to jam with, Metallica became a band on October 28, 1981. The band would play its first gig on March 14, 1982, at Radio City in Anaheim, California, a couple months later after they recruited Dave Mustaine as their lead guitarist. On November 16, 1981, soap opera General Hospital presented the marriage of Luke and Laura, which was watched by 30 million viewers and remains the highest rated hour in American daytime soap opera history. We go to a yacht off the coast of Catalina Island, where on November 29th, actress Natalie Wood was on a yacht with her husband, actor Robert Wagner, her friend, actor Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain when she mysteriously disappeared in the middle of the night. Wood's body was found a mile away the next morning, and her death was ruled an accidental drowning, despite a litany of suspicious facts and contradictory accounts from her 3 companions.
Now, we've said from the beginning that we don't think she was knocked unconscious when she went in the water.
The LA County coroner ruled Natalie Wood's death
that it was an accidental drowning.
Yeah, that was suspicious all the way around.
The new report could not conclude whether or not Wood's injuries were accidental.
Wagner and Walken have always maintained they don't know what happened.
The cause of death was changed from accidental drowning to undetermined. More true crime. After spending nearly 5 months on the run, adult film star John Holmes was arrested in Florida on December 4th, 1981, for his involvement in the June 29th home invasion, armed robbery, and murder of a small gang of big-time drug dealers, which would become known as the Wonderland Murders. It was on December 11th, Muhammad Ali's days as a boxer ended, with a loss to Trevor Berbick. It was estimated that the champ, who was already showing signs of Parkinson's in 1981, had absorbed 200,000 hits during his career.
Unanimous decision for Trevor Berbick.
As far as Trevor Berbick goes, we'll see his part in the boxing record books later, but that's for another year. We're going to 1982 next, where a future sports icon would get his first shot on the biggest stage. A weatherman from Indiana would change late-night TV, and America would start dancing to zombies. Until then, this has been Weird History's Timeline.
Got a deal good. I'm putting you down to deal with Dick. Dick, what's the deal with the deal? Are we dealing? We're dealing. David's the deal with Don Dr. Dick.
So what do you think? What was your favorite memory of 1981? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other only about the 1980s videos from our Weird History. Very few fast food culinary creations have quite the lore around them as McDonald's The McRib. A creation of both an animal scientist and a fine dining chef, the McRib is the fast food white whale, appearing seemingly at random and disappearing just as quickly. The beloved McRib sandwich had a long journey from creation to consumption. Today we'll dive deeper into the weird history of the McRib. But before we do, be sure to click on the subscribe button below and let us know in the comments what other odd food histories you would like to hear about next. Do we hear your mouths watering? Grilled pork and that sassy sauce. McRib. Chomp, chomp, chomp. In the 1970s, the American public became all weak.
Sorry.
As a kid, I never had a job. But still, they say I'm 100 years old, and everybody I meet, they say they played ball with me. Some of them's 100, some of them's 85 and 90.
We now go to the courts On June 15th, the Supreme Court made a landmark decision when it ruled that states cannot constitutionally deny students a free public education, and the rise of the machines. And let's not forget 1982. What a year it was. 82 would see some now iconic items taking shape. A gapped-toothed comedian take over late night, the emergence of the war on drugs' most laughable catchphrase, and the rise of the machines. And let's not forget 1982 would be filled with plenty of spicy drama.
Tum-tums.
We're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 80s. This is Timeline. Today, we're moving on to 1982. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what you miss about the 80s. Okay then, are you ready to do 82? Don't worry, we've got you covered. This is 1982. Starting off in 82, 10-year-old Donnie Priest would be the sole survivor when his mother, Lee Vaughn, and stepfather and pilot, Ron Vaughn, flew a single-engine Grumman AA-5B plane into a snowy slope near the northeastern edge of Yosemite National Park. After spending 5 days in freezing weather, Donnie Priest was found by a search and rescue team. Priest lost both of his legs below the knee due to severe frostbite. Switching to the courts, the Honorable William Ray Overton voted in favor of Act 590 on January 5, 1982, also known as the Arkansas Balanced Treatment Act, which was a law that required the teaching of creationism in classrooms. Kids got a dose of real science with the theory of evolution, Charles Darwin, and genetics, as well as creation myths, Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve. We go to Cuba, where Ubra Blanca was a cow, but not just any cow. Spanish for white udder, Ubra Blanca was known for the enormous amount of milk she produced every day. In Cuba, on January 5, 1982, Ubra Blanca produced 110 liters of milk. That's 29 gallons to us Americans. This really impressed Fidel Castro. He often referred to Ubra Blanca's prodigious output in speeches as evidence of communism's superior breeding skills.
3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana. Looking, throwing in the end zone.
I Love Rock and Roll was originally recorded by the British band Arrows in 1975. The song went mostly unnoticed until Joan Jett and the Blackhearts recorded their version of it, released as a single on January 19th. Jett's version reached #1 on Billboard's Hot 100 exactly 1 month later, on February 19th. Staying with music, while performing at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa on January 20th, during his Diary of a Madman tour, Ozzy Osbourne picked up a fake bat and bit its head off. Well, Ozzy at least thought it was fake. Mark Neal, a 17-year-old fan, threw a real bat on the stage, as one of every does in Iowa, and due to Foster, a flashing light short and off the shelf, Ozzy picked it up, held it above his head to the crowd, and proceeded to take a batty bite. Neal has said that the bat was already dead when he brought it to the venue, but Ozzy swears the bat bit him first.
We don't want to spend all our time discussing you biting the heads off stuff, but is this okay to be doing this stuff?
Sticking with Dave, on February 1st, David Letterman debuted Late Night, arguably the most exciting, innovative, and insane late-night talk show ever. In its 11 seasons, Letterman would throw crap off buildings, introduce us to stupid pet tricks, and host incredible bands that would have never gotten the chance to perform on television otherwise. His first guest was the one and only Bill Murray.
Dave Letterman, come on, everybody out! Everybody out! Everybody out!
Released on September 13, 1981, it took the Jay Giles Band's Centerfold over 4 months to hit #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. But when it did, it stayed there for 6 weeks. Staying on the music theme, by the mid-70s, jazz legend Thelonious Monk had disappeared from the scene he influenced so greatly with his unique improvisational style. More than a complex musician, he was a complex person. Sadly, jazz historians attribute his quirky behavior to manic depression and schizophrenia. Monk died on February 17th. Another sad passing happened in March. Philip Kindred Dick, the world-renowned science fiction writer responsible for some of the genre's most influential work, died on March 2nd. Months later, Blade Runner, which was a film based off the Philip K. Dick novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, debuted on June 25th, 1982.
Good evening, I'm Marty McNeely for WGN News. Comic actor John Belushi died today at a rented hotel bungalow in the Hollywood Hills.
While holed up in the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles, John Belushi would go on the last party bender of his life. Just after midnight, Belushi was visited separately by his friends Robin Williams, Robert De Niro, and Catherine Evelyn Smith, who we'd find out later was the person who injected Belushi with 11 speedballs, which led to his death.
11 speedballs? God damn.
Deported to Canada. Now we go to the New Orleans Superdome, where the North Carolina Tar Heels were down by 1 with less than 20 seconds left in the game. Freshman Mike Jordan then sinks a 16-foot jump.
Look how young he was.
The Heels win the NCAA championship. On this night, Mike became Michael. We may see this Michael Jordan guy a few more times this decade. Jane Fonda's first exercise video debuted on April 24th. Simply
Quite possible.
Workout.
You never know.
Inspired by her best-selling book,
Anything can
Jane
happen in
Fonda's
the
workout
80s.
book, Fonda brought aerobics to the masses. Next, a music and crime story. While driving his 1977 Porsche Turbo Carrera near Sunset Boulevard, Rod Stewart was approached by an armed gunman in broad daylight. The gunman demanded the keys to Stewart's $50,000 wheel.
Twitch did recommend that I broadcast for like minimum 4 hours. And I have been live for 6 hours and 30 minutes and 8 seconds, 10 seconds.
Sophia Loren voluntarily surrendered in Italy.
I believe that's a
Jail on
record.
May 19th. The
For me?
charges stemmed from a discrepancy on her 1974 tax return, in which she filed in a lower tax bracket. She then
And a much earlier. I mean, I'm usually. It's funny because usually I'm just starting my broadcast now.
Pitched his first game for the Cleveland Indians after being drafted from the Negro League.
I think I'm going to try to do more broadcasts on Tuesday evening, Tuesday afternoon, because I have plenty of time to do what I need to do. I mean, I'm still going to upload
We now go to the courts.
as often as I can,
The Supreme Court made a landmark decision when it ruled that states cannot constitutionally deny students a
Tuesday
free
seems
public
like a good day to
education
do
on
these
account of
lengthy
their
broadcasts.
immigration status. The case began in 1977 when 4 immigrant families sued the Tyler, Texas school district after their children were kicked out and then told they had to pay tuition to gain entrance into their schools. Staying with the justice system, on June 21st, having been charged with 13 offenses, would-be assassin John Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Hinckley wrote that the assassination attempt was the greatest love offering in the history of the world, in an odd way trying to win actress Jodie Foster's heart.
I believe that it's, that the letters were used in, love type of.
But that he was extremely disappointed that Foster didn't accept in return his love for her. During the early 80s, the Soviets were trying to
She wasn't
develop a
interested in you,
pipeline
buddy.
that would carry natural gas across Siberia.
Unfortunately, sorry to say, even back then, I believe you were barking up the wrong tree.
That a pipeline of this scale would require. The United States had the software, but there was no way in hell.
And kudos to Miss Foster for largely staying out of the public eye
So when the CIA found out that
altogether.
the Soviets had
Like,
been
she just don't
classified
fuck with it.
government documents for
You know?
years, they thought it would be the perfect opportunity to add a Trojan horse to their coveted pipeline software. The incorrect software code caused a major explosion in the Trans-Siberian gas pipeline. The result was a blast so monumental, balls of fire could be seen from space. Speaking of space,
From
E.T. fell from the
space!
sky and into our hearts on June 11th. By the end of its theatrical run, it had grossed $359 million in North America and $619 million worldwide. At E.T.'s peak, Spielberg was earning $500,000 a day from his back-end stake. The Hershey Company's profits increased by 65%, thanks to the product placement of Reese's Pieces. Besides E.T., another alien movie.
I had 9 live views today, which is much more than I usually get because I'm streaming so late at night.
Next, some baseball news.
But thank you guys for all coming by and checking out my stream when you did. I really appreciate that.
Play in 2,632 consecutive games, on September 20th, 1998.
An amazing sight, almost overwhelming.
On July
It's
2nd,
interesting.
Larry Walters completed a 45-minute flight.
I'm an only child, so growing up, I had to entertain myself.
Lawn chair Larry rose to a little
and
over
I think that
15,000 feet in altitude by Long Beach, California. Walters
helps out a little bit
CB radio,
during these streams because I don't need, I mean, I would like to talk to you guys, but it's not a requirement if you don't want to. I'm just here to share some cool stuff to watch and some video games. Hello, new viewer. How you doing today? I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions. And there he goes. That's cool.
Actor Vic Morrow and two child actors, Micah
In and out.
and Renee Shin-Yu Shen, both hired illegally. Director John Landis and 3 others involved with the movie were eventually acquitted of manslaughter charges in a 9-month trial which spanned 1986 and 87.
This is a terrible, terrible accident that obviously will cause pain and anguish to all of us for the rest of our lives.
Steven Spielberg, the co-producer of the movie, was so disgusted by Landis' handling of the situation, he ended the friendship. A moment for video game nostalgia. Atari was the leader in home video game consoles for 5 or so years. But on August 1st, ColecoVision debuted.
Because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
The ColecoVision console offered a better user experience, with graphics and gameplay that was close in comparison to the game systems one would find at a video game arcade. Unfortunately, ColecoVision was discontinued in 1985, when Coleco withdrew from the video game market. On August 27th, Ricky Henderson broke Lou Brock's Major League single-season record by stealing his 130th base in the 3rd inning of Milwaukee Brewers, where he'd go on to steal 3 more that game. The first commercial compact disc was produced on August 17th. The artist? The classical composer Claudio Arau, a Chilean pianist best known for his interpretations of 20th century composers. The album? Arau's 1979 recording of Chopin waltzes. We turn to some true crime. While delivering newspapers between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. on September 5th in Des Moines, Iowa, 12-year-old Josh disappeared without a trace.
Nice to meet you. I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions.
2 years later, Gosh, along with another missing boy, Eugene Martin, became the children to be featured on the National Child Safety Council's new Missing Children Milk Carton program.
I've been on for a number of hours.
We go to Monaco.
There's Atomic Heart gameplay in previas parts of the stream. I also did a couple previews. What was it? Wayfinder.
Kelly was taken to the Monaco
Wayfarer.
hospital with injuries to the brain, thorax, and a fractured femur. Doctors surmised that she had suffered a minor stroke while driving. Princess Grace died the following night. But first, for pop culture journalism. Although USA Today was first distributed to the Baltimore and Washington, D.C. metropolitan areas on its launch date of September 5th, 1982. Scott Fallman, a computer scientist and professor emeritus at Carnegie Mellon University,
we watched a video on Wayfinder, that's what it's called, and also we looked at a video
people on this group chat used to pepper in sarcastic comments and jokes. On September 19th,
exploring the dark children's fantasy films of the 80s.
From Scott E.
And hold on, actually I have the menu for tonight's. Yeah. I'm gonna leave this up here.
This use :left parenthesis.
Uncultured and Forced Gaming was what we looked at the beginning of the stream.
Wasn't the first instance when football players walked, but at the time it was the longest stretch fans went without a game.
Without professional football is about as unusual as a Cleveland winter without snow. A football player strike wouldn't stop the snow, but it would empty out the stadium.
It's nice to see that people are up.
As well.
After 57 days, the Players Union and the NFL came to an
especially
agreement,
since it's
the Washington Redskins eventually went on to
10 minutes to 2 on a Tuesday.
9-game season. September of 1982 brought some NBC.
I'm going to call it quits at the end of this video.
With loved ones playing a heartwarming game such as this, or what make
I want to get some kind of normal sleep pattern. If I wake up early, that's fine. I can do that. But I want to give myself some leeway with sleeping.
What the hell was that?
Staying with TV, on September 24th, 1982, Coy and Vance Duke made their debut on the Dukes of Hazzard, After the cousins Bo
I don't know.
Luke
We'll
left
see how it
Hazard
goes.
County to fulfill a lifelong dream of racing on the NASCAR circuit.
I am a
Well,
night
that's how
owl.
the show
Like
exploded.
I'm
In
one of those
reality,
kids that
John
always fought
Schneider and Tom
bedtime.
Wopat filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers for $25
And stay up
million,
underneath the blankets
alleging
reading
that
a
Warner
comic
had
book or
shortchanged
a
Duke
book
boys
or
on
something
royalties.
like that.
After Coy and Vance's season 5 ratings tanked, Warner Brothers ponied up the dough, and Bo and Luke were written back into season
So I don't mind
6.
staying up
While
late.
Coy and Vance, well, Brian Cherry, who played Coy Vance, went on to play Deputy Will Roxy on an episode of Murder, She Wrote. That's cool. We find ourselves in an unsolved crime story. It all started on September 29th, when 12-year-old Mary Ann Kellerman of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, died after taking the over-the-counter pain reliever. Within the next few days, 6 more people died. But it wasn't until 2
There was some
Chicago
crazy shit back in the
firefighters,
80s,
Richard
man.
Keyworth and Philip Capitelli, realized that all 7 victims had taken extra-strength Tylenol prior to becoming ill. While every bottle of Tylenol was recalled, the only contaminated capsules were found in the Chicago area.
As we know, the children's Tylenol, the chewable.
That's crazy. And the children's
To this
Tylenol,
day,
man.
the culprit has never been caught. But the murders led to
Man.
new tamper-proof medicine containers and
Yeah.
hundreds of copycat
That's where
attacks.
that came from.
If we go to the parking lot of Tony Roma's in Las Vegas, it was a normal
The reason
day
you
for
can't
Frank
open
Lefty
any
Rosenthal.
fucking bottles
After
these
getting into
days
his
is
Cadillac
because some
Eldorado,
dumbass
Rosenthal
motherfucker
noticed flames
tried to
shooting
kill
out of
kids
his
with
Caddy's
Tylenol.
dashboard defroster vent. And the next thing he knew, Lefty was rolling around in the parking lot trying to snuff out his suit, which was on fire. Seconds later, Lefty's car blew up. In 1995, Martin Scorsese opened his masterpiece Casino around the assassination attempt. He could have had the food and beverage job, you know.
Entertain anybody? Hey, Nellie, what would you like? I ain't got anything pale and cold.
Yeah, but it's Diane's day off.
Co-founded by former U.S. First Lady Betty Ford, the first Betty Ford clinic
That was a
opened
good show.
on October 4th in Rancho Mirage, California, about 10 miles northwest of Palm Springs. Ford came up with the idea after her own battle with alcohol dependence and diazepam addiction. 10 days later, on October 14th, President Ronald Reagan took a different approach to drugs. He declared a war on them. Later in October, when a 4th grader at Longfellow Elementary School in Oakland, California, asked the First Lady Nancy Reagan what to do if approached
Actually,
by someone
in
offering
case
drugs,
somebody,
Nancy said,
for the
just say no to drugs.
people that are in
Didn't really
here
have an effect
now,
on John DeLorean, who was arrested on
or
October
might stop
19th
by
the US
and leave the
government.
menu up and stream schedule.
During a sting operation, DeLorean laughs it up with undercover federal agents, making a sweet $24 million deal to traffic cocaine. DeLorean claims that he only did it to save his failing sports car company. DeLorean would have the last laugh, though. 2 years later, at trial, DeLorean's lawyers successfully argued that the FBI and DEA had targeted and entrapped DeLorean himself, simply because he and the DeLorean Motor Company were financial wrecks. On the car note, Honda became the first Asian car company to produce cars in the United States on November 1st, with the opening of the Marysville Auto Plant in the heart of the Buckeye State, Ohio. The first Honda to roll off the floor of the plant was the '82 Honda Accord. And by the way, Marysville,
go.
Ohio, Mad River, just wonderful. To the world of sports. We go to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas on November 13th, where a 21-year-old Ray Boom Boom Mancini was set to defend his WBA lightweight title against the 23-year-old South Korean challenger, Duk-Koo Kim. After 14 brutal rounds, the ring referee called the fight on a TKO, and the victorious Mancini kept his title. Moments later, Kim collapsed and fell into a coma, having suffered a subdural hematoma. Kim died 4 days later. The impact was great. Mancini blamed himself for Kim's death and fell into a deep depression for years. 3 months after the fight, Kim's mother committed suicide. And on July 1st,
So brutal.
1983,
Fuck,
the
man.
fight's referee, Richard Green, also ended his life. Coming back to music, Michael Jackson released Thriller on November 30th. At its peak, Thriller sold 1 million copies worldwide per week. And by the end of 1983, it became the best-selling album of all time, having sold 32 million copies.
I also forgot to thank Quincy's wife, Peggy Jones. She was a great help on the ET album.
You hate to see this happen. On December 6th, Maureen Martyr signed an agreement with Paramount Studios which stated they had the rights to her life story for a cool $2,300. That's a little over $6,100 now. The thing is, Martyr was a construction worker by day and a stripper at night with a dream of one day becoming a professional dancer. When Flashdance debuted and earned a cool $201 million, with none of that cash going into Martyr's pocket. Christos Potamitos was the only guard on duty at the Century Armored Courier Corporation, when the company was robbed of $11.4 million, the biggest cash theft in America at the time. It didn't take long for the prosecutors to figure out that Podamitos was the inside man, allowing Eddie Argatakos, his partner in crime, to tie him up to make it look like he was overpowered. Podamitos and Argatakos got 15 years, but the thing is, only $1 million was ever recovered. Prosecutors insisted that Podamitos and Argatakos hid the money before they were convicted, so they could retrieve it if they got caught. Liam Hemsworth, Emma Roberts, and Dwayne Johnson co-starred in Empire State, which was based on the heist. Did anyone actually see that movie? Here's an odd accolade. On December 26th, Time Magazine named the personal computer its Man of the Year, or in this case, Machine of the Year. Finally, one last sports story. After a 6th-place SEC finish in the '82 season, Paul William Bryant coached his final game at the Liberty Bowl on December 29th, 1982, in a 21-15 victory over the University of Illinois. After the game, Bryant was asked what he planned to do now that he was retired. He replied, probably croquet a week. He wasn't far off. The beloved coach lived for one more month, dying on January 26th, 1983. 1983 was just a few days off. It would be a year where we would see a ride in space, moonwalks, and lucky stars. But that is for next year. You're just going to have to wait a minute or two. So what do you think? What is your highlight of 1982? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other only about the 1980s videos. 1983. It was a thriller of a year where we would see many highs and lows. From the ugly side of the Cabbage Patch Kids craze to the first man to moonwalk on TV, and a Mohawk man with a bad attitude who would pity a fool, while every breath you would take would feel like somebody was watching you. Some good clean moments.
Fresh and clean as a whistle. That's Irish Spring.
Today, we're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment.
Remember Irish Spring? Remember Zest?
This is Timeline. Today, we're on to 1983. But before we get going, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments what story you would like to hear more about. Okay then, are you ready to see 83? Good enough for us. This is 1983. We start off with sports. The new United States Football League, or USFL if you're saving time, held its first player draft in New York on January 4th. While the USFL had first crack at all incoming collegiate football players, the incoming rookies shied away from the new league, which was not good news for the league. Dan Marino was drafted in the first round as the first pick by the Los Angeles Express. He declined LA's offer and months later signed with the Miami Dolphins. The USFL would go on for 3 seasons, folding in 1986 after a failed antitrust lawsuit against the NFL, which was led by New Jersey General owner Donald J. Trump. A notable weird birth. South Korea says that Kim Jong-un was born on January 8, 1983. North Korean government officials insist that the year was actually 1982. American records show that the year was actually 84. This is the kind of uncertainty that consistently follows North Korea's supreme leader. Kim Jong-un succeeded his late father, Kim Jong-il, in 2011. He also made a friend for life with Dennis Rodman in 2013. With ties to casinos in Las Vegas, Cuba, the Bahamas, and London, Meyer Lansky became one of the most financially successful gangsters in American history. At his peak, Lansky was worth an estimated $20 million. That's over $200 million adjusted for inflation. When he died of lung cancer on January 15, 1983, Lansky had $57,000 to his name.
Maybe you can hire the A-Team.
I love it when a plan comes together.
We turn to some tragic music news. Karen Carpenter collapsed in her bedroom at her parents' home in Downey, California on February 4th after years of struggling with anorexia. Paramedics found Carpenter alive, but her heart was only beating once every 10 seconds. She died a couple of hours later at Downey Community Hospital. An autopsy attributed her death to nicotine abuse, an ingredient used to induce.
I like the idea of a watch party.
Released as a single 8 months before her 5th studio album, Faster Than
I have Amazon Prime,
Tyler unleashed the anthemic
so
on February 11th. written by Jim Steinman, the composer who would go on to write chart-topping power ballads for Meatloaf, Air Supply, and Celine Dion. Total Eclipse of the Heart went on to #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 on September 30th, 1983. Staying with pop music, it took 3 months for Michael Jackson's Thriller to touch #1 on the Billboard 200, but once it was there, it stayed for 37 weeks in a row. The record-breaking #1 streak began on February 26th and ended on April 14th, 1984, when the Footloose soundtrack knocked Jackson out of the top spot. Of course, Thriller has staying power. It never left the Billboard 200. Thriller is still on the Billboard 200 chart today. Go ahead, check. We'll wait. Told you. Channel now to network TV, and after 11 seasons, MASH ended its run with Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. The series finale was so highly anticipated, CBS sold commercial space in 30-second blocks for $450,000, even more than what NBC was charging for Super Bowl ad space that year. MASH still holds the title for the most watched episode of any television
Yeah, I might
series
see about doing a watch
audience
party.
of 121.6 million people. The 2-hour series finale was the most watched television broadcast in American history until 2010 when Super Bowl 44 came around. For some fashion news, and finally, Swiss design for the people. The plastic swatch debuted in Zurich, Switzerland on March 1st, 1983, when watchmaker Nicholas Hayek responded to the decline in sales of costly Swiss watches. The low price of $40 meant anyone could afford a Swiss timepiece. Nowadays, a Keith Haring swatch fetches over $1,000 on the collector's circuit. Now for some weird weather. On the morning of March 1st, 1983, Los Angeles got hit by a surprise tornado. The twister destroyed homes, cars, businesses, and even ripped off a good chunk of the LA Convention Center's roof. The tornado's path paralleled the 110 freeway for close to 4 miles, tearing a half-mile wide gash through downtown LA, killing 9 people, seriously injuring 30 more, and flattening 150 buildings. Turning to technology, the first commercial CD player, the iconic Sony CDP-101, beep boop bop beep beep boop, made its first appearance in Japan on October 1st, 1982. Unfortunately, everyone else in the world had to wait until March 19th
Yeah, apparently,
to play their $17 compact disc.
Apparently, Michael Jackson used to prank call Russell Crowe. That's
Serious audiophiles were more than thrilled with the $1,000
That's
price
adorable.
tag for crisp, clean sound with no noise interference, even if the sound was a bit hollow and tinny. In a nationwide television address, President Ronald Reagan announced his proposal for the Strategic Defense Initiative on March 23rd. Reagan claimed that the missile defense system would protect the United States from ballistic nuclear missiles. The following day, the Washington Post quoted an angry Senator Ted Kennedy, who said Reagan's defense proposal
Starfield,
was
September
reckless
6th,
Star Wars
2023.
sequence. The program's nickname, Star Wars, stuck. Over 10 years, the government spent around $30 billion on developing Reagan's Star Wars, but the program went nowhere. If you were watching it live on March 25th, you remember exactly where you were when Michael Jackson moonwalked across the Civic Auditorium in Pasadena, California. The occasion was Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever, a televised special to celebrate Motown's 25 years in the music business. When Michael Jackson slid across the stage during the guitar break in Billie Jean, it was as if time froze for a second.
Cream eggs from Cadbury. Why, they're the best thing to come along since the Easter Bunny. And when he's gone, they're gone.
We now go to Japan, and after 5 years of planning and construction, Tokyo Disneyland opened on April 15th, the first Disney park to be built outside the United States. Turning to the Middle East, the first embassy suicide bombing occurred in Beirut, Lebanon, on April 18th. The attack killed 32 Lebanese, 17 Americans, and 14 passers-by. It was the deadliest attack on a U.S. diplomatic mission up to that time. In music news, McKinley Morganfield, more commonly known as Muddy Waters, died on April 30th, 1983, at the age of 70. If you're wondering how influential Waters was, consider that the Rolling Stones named themselves after his song Rollin' Stone. And Brian May, Jimi Hendrix, and Angus Young all cited Muddy as one of their biggest influences.
Hey, new viewer, how you doing? I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions. We're checking out Weird History in the 80s.
Shall we play a game?
I can ask you that.
How about mobile thermonuclear war?
On On June 18th, NASA astronaut Sally Ride became the first American woman in space when she launched with her 4 crewmates aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger. During a pre-launch press conference, Ride dealt with questions like, will the flight affect your reproductive organs? And do you weep when things go wrong on the job? No one's exactly sure when the Catholic priest James Carney died in Honduras, but records and interviews estimate it to be sometime in July of '83. After being ordained in 1961, Carney was sent to minister to impoverished Hondurans. He eventually became chaplain for the Revolutionary Party of Central American Workers. As the Honduran Army's elite Battalion 316 closed in on the Revolutionary Party, it's reported that Carney was captured.
I'm at least going to stay on for the 7-hour mark. It's only like
have never been found.
8 minutes left, 7 minutes left.
White and developed for Richard Wilder. Trading Places premiered on June 8, 1983. If this featured extra looks familiar, that's Giancarlo Esposito. Giancarlo struck villain gold as Gus.
I love that name, Giancarlo. It's
on
fucking
May 17, 2009.
beautiful
It was
sounding
a
name.
manor day on July 14, 1983, for an Italian-American plumber. That was the day that Nintendo unleashed Mario Brothers in Japan. North America would get the game about a week later on July 20th. Some weird historical weather. The coldest natural temperature ever recorded at ground level on Earth was minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you outside of the U.S., that's negative 89.2 degrees Celsius. The big freeze happened on July 21st, 1983, at the Soviet Vostok station.
How you doing,
in
sir?
Antarctica.
Bam.
And at that temperature, it would only take a few breaths of air to
Welcome to the
induce
stream.
hemorrhaging in your lungs, which would lead to a quick death. To sports. And an afternoon game on July 24th, 1983. George Brett hit a 2-run dinger against the Yankees. The only problem for Brett
If you want to look back in the stream, there's
called it out to the umpires.
pointing at the wrong. There's a menu that has everything we've done tonight.
The first non-human primate conceived in a laboratory dish was born at the Southwest Foundation for Research and Education in San Antonio, Texas, on July 25th. The female baby, named E.T. for embryo transfer, was born 6 months after its test tube fertilization, and coincidentally,
I'm still a little bit irritated that Uncultured didn't have a never-ending story in his video, because the scene where Atreyu lost Artax in the Swamp of Sorrows is a deeply, deeply traumatizing event in most of gen-xer's childhoods,
in a joint
like
initiative
myself.
between then LAPD Chief Daryl Gates and the Los Angeles Unified School District,
it was awful.
the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program
Scarred
made its debut
for
on
life.
September 5th. There was a program
You can never look at horses again. We will try to save them all.
Exposed there as being a pretty ineffective program. Turns out teenagers don't like the learn by riveting PowerPoint presentation and prefer the do it and see it.
Because you've come on and you've stayed on, you've stayed in.
The fourth single off Madonna's eponymous debut
Let's see,
album
how far are we
released on
in?
September 8th,
Yeah, we're about nearly three quarters of the way in. But I'll stay and we'll do 1984 as well. The rise of Apple, Van Halen, and the Olympics. He dropped out. She dropped out. Well, nice to thank you for dropping by. G.I. Joe.
Get to the citizenship. A few months after he finished filming The Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger took the plunge and became a naturalized U.S. citizen on September 17th. He became one of the rare Americans who also has Austrian rights, as Austria rarely allows dual citizenship. 20 years later, on November 17th, 2000.
Yeah, but he was probably like an ambassador when Austria probably could have used it at the time.
The most talked about woman in the world when she became the first African American Miss USA winner on September 17th. In a 1984 issue of Penthouse, the world saw a nude 19-year-old Williams in what became the magazine's most profitable issue ever. Miss USA pageant officials forced Williams to resign. Vanessa would save the best for last when...
I might have actually seen that issue of Playboy.
When Williams would rebound with the release of the song Save the Best for Last, who which would make it up to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 list. If you're familiar with the phrase 2 and 2, you've probably seen at least one episode of Love Connection, the dating game show hosted by Chuck Woolery, who coined the phrase, debuted on September 19th. It was one of the most popular game shows of the 80s, but on July 1st, 1994, after 2,120 shows, Woolery 2 and 2 for the last time. All in all, Chuck Woolery conducted 35,478 interviews, which produced 31 marriages and 20 children. Now, for a notable 19...
just so you know, if you do chat, I will talk to you.
Gordon Getty was ranked the richest
I'm going to
man
start
in America,
trying to pay attention more to my stream manager.
On September 28th, 1983. How did he earn his money? The American way.
I've already got
His
like 2
father,
monitors
the late
going,
billionaire
trying to
oil
keep
tycoon
everything
John Paul Getty, gave him a boost. Today,
in some
Gordon is
kind
still
of
more
order.
than he was in 1983, 2 billion large. Only now he's the 212th richest person in the United States.
Well, I can't say that, but I've got a few items to purchase
on September 21st,
for the setup
David Mamet's Pulitzer Prize-winning
here
legendary
soon.
Glen Ross made its world premiere on the stage of the Royal National Theatre in London. A film adaptation of Mamet's play debuted on October 2nd, 1992, with an expanded script and a new role, Blake, specifically written for Alec Baldwin.
I've been in this business 15 years.
What's your name?
You! That's my name.
Hmm.
You know why, mister? Because you
One of the
drove
most
a Hyundai
savage
to get
burns
here
in
tonight.
movie
I
history.
drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name.
Here's something you didn't realize about the 80s. The world almost experienced Armageddon on September 26, 1983. But
Gelso ain't got nothing on that dude's burn. That is just...
You're here watching this video instead. The near-nuclear annihilation happened several weeks after the downing of Korean Airlines Flight 007 over Soviet airspace.
Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. Tammy 1994, I really do appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions. You can look on the menu. My stream, I've been streaming for quite a while today. So there's tons of content for you to check out earlier on. We're watching Weird History now. Checking out 1983, I think is what we're on right now. Yeah, we're on 1983.
Animal from man.
Again, thank you. I appreciate it. Been streaming for 7 hours today. I don't have to work till 3 tomorrow, so
While the rest of
here I
America was on
am.
to rotary and push-button phones by November 18th, 1963,
Well,
Bryant Pond was proud of the fact
nice to
that it
see
was the last
everybody
city to fly
tonight.
We go now to South America.
Normally, this is prime time for me. I don't normally start my streams until between 11 and 1:30 p.m. or a.m., depending on how long my day has been. But if you would like to check out some of my other content, I am on YouTube at American Gnome Productions. I have lots and lots of content. Well, not lots and lots, but a lot. I have a lot of content. Give you an idea what kind of person I am, what kind of things I like to do. Lots of video games for you to check out. See if you like those games. I want to start doing movie reviews at some point, and but I'm not comfortable with editing videos.
While there were signs of mania leading up to it, the Cabbage Patch Kids hysteria began on November 25th,
but I'll be working on it.
known to us as Black Friday.
I will.
Parents would travel hundreds of miles to a toy store.
Sometimes I can get lazy, and
Patch dolls came in. Coleco's inability to keep up with consumer demand caused
this no
fistfights and riots
edit,
across the
no
United
hassle,
States.
kind of raw streaming type of way of doing things. I feel comfortable doing it, and it gives me some practice being in front of an audience such as it is.
As well as one of the richest people in the Netherlands, was released on a ransom of
So
35 million Dutch
yeah,
guilders.
for now this is the way I'm going to do things until I feel comfortable making
adjusted for inflation,
advanced content where I'm building my own.
It took the 5 kidnappers 5 years to plan the job, and it was
what
the
do they
highest
call
ever
it?
paid for a kidnap victim at the time. The
My own
kidnappers were
assets.
eventually caught and sent to prison. crime does pay. You just can't keep it. If you had cable and you were around a TV on December 2nd, you were watching Thriller's debut. John Landis, 16 months after the deaths on his Twilight Zone set, directed the $900,000 video on 35mm film. Former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld met with Saddam Hussein on December 20th,
Maybe
1983,
sometime
to show America's support for the regime despite its use of chemical weapons. The U.S. was pushing for the
maybe sometimes this week I'll take
was sent to the Middle East to serve as a mediator and do the bidding of President Reagan.
I'll take the stream,
and that's how 1983 went.
and
1984 was
I
just on the
will
horizon. It would be a year for fashion, fast food,
experiment
and
with editing
that
it.
is for next year. Until then, you can have a snack
and see
while
where
you wait
things
for
go.
84 to come.
For a taste that's crispier than ever before. Mrs. Paul's crispier, crunchier fish sticks and fillets.
So what do you think? What story would you like to see a full video on? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other 80s videos from our weird history.
I earned 2 followers today. That's really cool. Thank you both for your follow. I appreciate it.
It is one of the best family adventure films ever. E.T. won awards, launched superstar careers, and generated mountains and mountains of merchandise. One of these licensed products, however, is notorious for being the worst video game of all time. Today, we're talking about how the E.T. video game...
I don't know if I think I did play E.T.
But before we dig in, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel.
We had all those games back in the day.
Pop culture stories you would like
I probably
to hear
did play E.T.
Okay, let's go 8-bit.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do this one too, because it's an important piece of history.
Redefined what the United States thought of video games in the
This game nearly ended a company.
Atari was founded by Ted Dabney in 1972, and its importance in the history of gaming cannot be overstated. The company birthed the video game arcade cabinet and the modern video game industry as we know it. Atari initially began its life as a video game company called Syzygy. If you're unfamiliar with that word, it means a pair of connected or corresponding things. In this case, it was a reference to the two founders' connection. Both Bushnell and Dabney had been working with a manufacturing company named Nutting Associates to pioneer a standalone computer and screen inside a cabinet that would be linked to a coin slot that would allow a player to go on an adventure for 25 cents a try. Ultimately, they reached an impasse with Nutting Associates and partnered with Bally Manufacturing to produce video game cabinets and pinball games. Bushnell and Dabney's partnership proved to be successful, and they continued to produce games and products for Bally. In fact, they offered Bally their next product, a video game named Pong. Bally, however, was not interested, and so Bushnell and Dabney built their own Pong machine and set it up in a local Walgreens to see if it would attract an audience. And boy, did it ever.
Wow, back when you could just stick your product in somebody's store and say, hey, if it makes money, it makes money. You can still do that. This is the Wild West of the day,
Bushnell had thought long
of
and hard
things.
about the name of their new company. All of the names he was considering were derived from the game Go. Atari is the positioning of stones when they're in the most danger of being captured. Think of it as the game's version of The Last Stand, when things are the most dangerous. By 1973, Nolan had hatched a plan for how to divide and conquer the gaming.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Games started to slowly gain
Hello, how you doing?
pinball cabinets were everywhere,
I'm Josh with American Gnome Productions.
The issue
Nice to
with
meet
them,
you.
though, was that pinball distributors were very proprietary and wanted exclusive rights to games when Atari pitched them. So how did Bushnell get around this issue? Well, Bushnell started a side company with his next-door neighbor, Joe Keenan, titled Key Games. Atari would sell a pinball game. Then they'd change the name, and Joe Keenan would go and sell it to another pinball distributor. Basically, they were making twice the money for their efforts. This was the catalyst to allow Joe Keenan to become promoted to Atari president. Steven Spielberg, as we all know, is arguably the most successful commercial film director of all time. After rising through the ranks of New Hollywood, he crafted one of the most successful films ever, E.T., the Extraterrestrial. In today's world, it's somewhat difficult to comprehend just how looked down upon genre filmmaking was in the 60s and 70s. Much of that changed thanks to Spielberg. He took ideas like aliens and abnormally sized animals and evolved them from schlocky exploitation stories into emotionally resonant human tales that captured a generation's heart. His film E.T. is widely credited with normalizing science fiction for an entire generation. It took the ideas of alien invaders and space travel and flipped it on its head. Spielberg created a cinematic world where the alien wasn't your enemy, but your long-lost best friend. And with that emotional intimacy came merchandising, which is how we'll eventually get E.T., the extraterrestrial.
You get a toy. You get a toy. You get a very, very unusual shaped light-up finger.
Atari released
no, we're going to recall that one.
Console in 1977. It was dubbed the Atari VCS initially. Later, it would be renamed to the Atari 2600. The 2600 was originally priced at $199 and shipped with 2 joysticks.
I do understand this is one of those sweet spot times. Yeah, like night owls that got off late at night from work are just unwinding, and I'm right there, so I'll get a passing view.
And by the end of 1978, there were only 550,000 units sold. Up until this point,
I really like that I have
the Atari gaming system had been programmed and created in-house. In an effort to try and mix things up, they decided to branch out.
The ability and the possibility of engaging you guys directly live, and I appreciate that. It's
in fact, Activision, who made legendary games such as Kaboom and Pitfall,
feels better than being on YouTube.
Activision was
sometimes because
that's how quickly the market was expanding.
Like,
Atari started snapping up licenses to popular
like if you have an established audience, then I guess you know who you're talking to, but I don't know who exactly I'm talking to yet.
Atari found their blueprint.
I was one of those people that was always into a bunch of different things. But at the same time, I can be hyper focused on certain things. Like I'm gonna play Atomic Heart until its completion.
Howard Scott Warshaw was selected to program the game.
Like that's gonna happen. That game is ridiculously good.
After graduating from Tulane University, Warshaw was hired by Hewlett-Packard, where he worked as a multi-terminal systems engineer. However, in 1981, he was hired by Atari to work as a game designer and programmer.
As far as the game itself, the controversy surrounding it, I still am suspicious of it sending money to the Kremlin, and I'm not down with that at all. But as far as the content goes, at least as far as I've gotten through, there is some.
Howard was on fire. He was the best.
There is some commentary there.
E.T. the extraterrestrial should have been a no-brainer.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to play through it, but like there is like
nothing less than Herculean. This wasn't a project that would be served.
I mean, there's representation there. Like the Russians are always very proud, and that's not a bad feature in a person or people.
In the game you play as E.T. as he attempts to navigate various fields that are riddled with something
I'm just saying, like the Russians, they're very proud people, stubborn people, hardy people.
That's pretty much the game. Believe it or not, Warshaw did the impossible. He made it happen. The game,
especially in the climate of the Cold War. As it was in the 50s and in the game.
Most everyone found it exceedingly difficult to play, pointless with no story, and it was too loosely connected to the film. The game became the biggest commercial failure in video game history. Since then, E.T. has been christened.
Like, it's still a distinctly Russian game. You're like, yeah, they have all of this stuff, and
the video game market crashed.
It all works, and it's all revolutionary, and it's beautiful.
In short, it was a large-scale reception that set it up in the world. The Atari shock lasted from 1983 to 1985. Factors contributing to the crash were market saturation, the number of gaming consoles,
and they're ahead of
the
everyone
interest in
else.
consoles versus the renewed interest in personal computers. This wave of contracting business, coupled with a major defeat, decimated Atari, and the company was put up for sale.
Yeah, you'd want that for your country.
Through the back alleys of the gaming world that said in September of
and the only reason
14 truckloads of cartridges out to the New Mexico desert and dumped them into a landfill. This tale has persisted as an urban legend among the gaming community for decades. Eventually, Atari was sold
all
to
is going down
Jack Tramiel. It limped along for a little
is
while
because
and then
you
was
had
officially shut down.
betrayal within.
The question is,
I'm sure there's a lot more
did
going
Atari
on.
truck literal tons of ETs
That's why I want to reserve judgment. I mean, like, so far as I can tell, there is some commentary
in 2014, X-Men 2 and Hulk screenwriter Zach Penn set out to answer this question definitively. He produced and directed a documentary titled Atari: Game Over.
I mean, I want to go back and play it now, but I can't. I gotta get up. I'm already cutting it a little bit close now.
2013. Penn and his team worked on it for years. They tracked down all the original Atari employees, including the creatives, and conducted many, many, many fan interviews. Everyone had a different answer.
Like,
even the official records were spotty.
If you guys,
say what really happened.
More of you guys like my content, and you start to like
a group traveled out to the El Gordo, New Mexico landfill,
blowing me up.
26th, 2014.
I'm gonna have to be on here for 7+ hours.
Ernest Klein, author of Ready Player One,
a couple times a week at least.
Howard Scott Warshaw, and legions of fans.
Just to
the dig lasted roughly 3 hours.
Just to keep up with everything, and things are moving fast. Right now, this year is full, jam-packed with
stuff. Do you remember playing the ET video game? Was it as bad as everyone says? Let us know in the comments below.
I mean, if you go to, well, no, let's just let this. I've seen all of these,
a year
so
that had been long associated with the George Orwell
this is more for you guys than for me. I want to give these guys as much traffic as they possibly can get, because they're fucking. These guys are awesome.
And nauseating, like a Mary Lou. You make the call. Today, we're going to talk about the news, culture, sports,
still fucking editing. All right.
This is Timeline.
Let's see. Oh yeah.
Today, we're on to 1984. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. And let us know in the comments below what one of these stories.
I would imagine there's a lot more updates for 30 series cards than my old 1660.
Could be the best tasting lettuce and tomato hamburger ever.
This is 1984.
Yeah, so
starting off the year, 8 break up into 7 smaller regional companies on January 1st. By 2018, like a corporate Galactus, the company had consumed smaller Baby Bell companies.
Guilty Gear, Strive. I'm sure my buddy Chan, he'll be wanting to play that. I saw him playing the FI-22 earlier today.
Watching the dominoes.
He plays SD Gundam Battle Alliance, I think. Yeah, he plays that.
Set the world record for domino toppling with a grand total of 281,581 individual pieces.
Apparently, Hi-Fi Rush is a really good game.
Television's crime-fighting helicopter craze started when Blue Thunder debuted. Blue Thunder had a great cast with a baby-faced Dana Carvey,
Serious Sam. I wonder if that's good.
Bubba Smith and Dick Butkus. 3 weeks later, when America asked the question, how much helicopter entertainment are we willing to accept? Airwolf answered when it flew into our TV viewing hearts on January 22nd. 8 years later, long after Airwolf was canceled, the Airwolf helicopter was sold to a German company, where it became an ambulance helicopter. On June 6, 1992, the chopper crashed during a thunderstorm, killing all 3 crew on board. Turning to music, the release of Van Halen's 1984 on January 9th changed everything for the band. They got a year's worth of chart-topping singles, starting with Jump and ending with the release of Hot for Teacher on October 27th. Eventually, egos and the success of 1984 destroyed that band, and by July of 1985,
Let's see what
Sammy
else it
Hagar had
is.
replaced Diamond Dave, and that
I
original
don't care
man
about
magic
Wolfenstein
was lost
Youngblood.
forever.
It certainly is a big one. It's a very big fluffy bun.
Where's the beef?
Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun.
Where's the beef?
Staying with fast food, 4 days later, McDonald's Ray Kroc,
Wolfenstein,
the
the
man
Old
who
Blood.
helped build
What?
McDonald's into the multi-billion-dollar fast food empire, died on January 14th. Kroc opened his first McDonald's franchise in 1955 in Chicago. In 1961, he bought out the McDonald's brothers for $2.7 million cash. And by 1965, opened more than 700 restaurants in 44 states. Among the many things that Kroc bought with his fortune were the San Diego Padres. We'll see Los Padres later in the year.
Paul McCartney and his family had arrived back from Barbados, where he'd been fined £70 for
That might be.
a small amount of cannabis.
No, this isn't 1980.
That might be
itself.
interesting.
On January 15th,
Wolfenstein, the Old Blood. That sounds interesting.
Tokyo, Paul McCartney was arrested again for marijuana, only this time for pot possession.
I still got to
While on
try
vacation in
Valorant.
Barbados with his
I
wife
know I
Linda.
should be doing
Acting on
that.
a tip, Barbados police raided McCartney's vacation house and found 10 grand.
Whatever you think, whatever you think I've done, this, I'm telling you, this substance, cannabis, is a whole lot less harmful than rum punch, whiskey, nicotine, and glue, all of which are perfectly legal.
While Paul spent 9 days in jail during his Tokyo
There we
bust,
go.
the couple
All
was only
PC
fined
games.
$100 by a Barbados judge.
Let's
Mary
see.
Jane, I've come a long way since '84, baby. 2 days later, on January 17th, the automotive industry would change forever when stylish Dodge Caravan and the edgy Plymouth Voyager debuted. When these first two minivans hit dealership lots, the soccer mom trucksters sold like toilet paper in a pandemic. Chrysler even hired magician Doug Henning to pimp their ride. Apple's dystopian commercial, 1984, directed by Ridley Scott, only aired once nationally, and it was on January 22nd, during the third quarter of the 1984 Super Bowl. Based off of George Orwell's novel, 1984, the sledgehammer-wielding woman represented Apple, and Big Brother was IBM, which had dominated the PC market. 2 days later, Apple released the Macintosh.
Oh.
With a price tag
I'm probably gonna play the Dead Space remake. That's gonna happen.
Many dismissed it as just an expensive toy. 3 days later, Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire on January 27th while he was filming a Pepsi commercial.
I'm looking
As
through all this
Jackson
stuff
walked down a
on
staircase
Game
stage,
Pass.
a spark from the house pyrotechnics landed on his head, which was unwittingly filled with flammable hair product. Heading into February, we go to space. During NASA's space shuttle mission STS-41B on the 7th, astronauts Captain Bruce McCandless and Colonel Robert Stewart made history's first untethered spacewalk. With the aid of 300-pound nitrogen-propelled backpacks, the astronauts made 2 spacewalks during the mission. The first mission lasted 5 hours and 55 minutes.
Play all the
running a
Halos.
football field's length away from the Space Shuttle Challenger. It was late February when David Vedder, the Houston boy who was confined to a plastic bubble for his entire life due to his severely compromised immune system, died. Vedder wasn't always confined to his bubble, though. NASA built David a hermetically sealed outfit, an astronaut spacesuit, where he could walk outside without risking infection. But David disliked the suit and only used it 7 times. David was just 12 years old. Moving into March, the United States accused Iraq of using lethal chemical weapons on March 5th against Iran during their 42-month-old war. A statement issued by the State Department said that the weapons were used in violation of the Geneva Protocol of 1925, which Iraq had agreed to in 1931. We go to Melbourne, Australia, where we find a notable first. On March 28th, Zoe Leyland, the first baby born from an embryo frozen after in vitro fertilization, was born. The embryo had been frozen for 2 months. Not very long by today's standards, but it was unheard of at the time. Just for perspective, we flash forward to November of 2017, when Emma Wren Gibson was born. She currently holds the frozen embryo record. She was on ice for 25 years. In late March, William Potts boarded an airplane bound for Miami from New Jersey on March 27th.
All right.
He gave the flight attendant a note identifying himself as
After this one,
Spartacus
I'm
of
gonna
the Black
call it
Liberation Army,
quits.
and he
I'm starting to
demanded
get a
the plane
headache.
fly to Havana, Cuba. Potts told the pilot, "We are all going to hell or Cuba." When the plane landed, Cuban authorities put the lid on Potts, charging him with
I think I'm good. And I'll see you guys.
Welcome to television's unchallenged authority on wealth.
I might stream tomorrow night. And I might stream.
Sly Stallone asks, anyone for polo?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, it's already Tuesday. I'm sorry, Wednesday. So I might stream tonight when I get home from work. If not, then I definitely will on Thursday. When I get Thursday. That's a 3 to 10. And I have to be up. No. So I might stream tonight, Wednesday night. And if not, then I will see you on possibly Friday, possibly Saturday night, but definitely Sunday. Like it depends on
as the two had been arguing over a missing
how my work and sleep schedule need to be.
Moments later,
But
Gay Sr.
I'm regular enough. I'm usually a creature of habit.
In the heart at point-blank range. Marvin Gaye was declared dead on arrival at the hospital 1 day before school.
And especially if I know that you guys are watching, keep doing what I'm doing.
Ansel's work and his persistent advocacy for environmental conservation helped expand the national park system. President Jimmy Carter awarded Adams with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1980. Turning to music news, on May 1st, Mick Fleetwood, drummer for Fleetwood Mac, filed for bankruptcy. The drummer said his financial downfall was caused by bad real estate investments. Oh, and a cocaine addiction that he estimates cost him $8 million.
$8 million coke habit. Oh my God.
Take that, Stevie Nicks. An out-of-court settlement was announced on May 7th for veterans who had suffered injury from exposure to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. When all was said and done, Dow Chemical and 6 other manufacturers paid $184 million to military.
I wonder what my dad's views on that would have been.
Settled out of court. The vets felt that they had been betrayed by their lawyers.
Many of my brothers have died when you sat up there and played political bullshit.
Gentlemen, we can't wait 20, 30, 40 years.
The settlement would only give each a maximum of $12,000, spread out over the course of 10 years. Worse than the paltry payout, by accepting the settlement, disabled veterans would be ineligible for other state benefits, such as food stamps, public assistance, and government pensions.
Fucking
8 days later,
fucking
after a
sleazy
year
as
of battling
fuck.
an extremely rare type of lung cancer, comedian Andy Kaufman died in Los Angeles on May 16th. His last public appearance was at the premiere of My Breakfast with Blassie, several months earlier in March, where he showed up with a mohawk, looking gaunt and acting more reserved than usual. Kaufman then flew to the Philippines, where as a last resort, he received 6 weeks' worth of psychic surgery treatments, which Kaufman soon realized was a scam. In mid-May, after 9 months of recording and studying Press Your Luck, Michael Larson broke the record for the largest...
We can be really bad to each other sometimes, man.
Larson won $110,237 by gaming the game, memorizing the blinking light patterns to avoid whammies while almost always landing on the bonus boxes. Show producers caught this while this episode was being filmed. CBS initially refused to pay Larson, but they couldn't find a clause in the game's rules to disqualify him. Early in June, Bruce Springsteen released his 7th studio album, Born in the USA, on June 4th. Springsteen earned a Grammy for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance with Dancing in the Dark. The Boss lost the Album of the Year honors to Lionel Richie's Can't Slow Down. But at least Richie gave us the video for Hello, which still is one of the creepiest stalker-themed music videos ever. Speaking of creepy...
This is heart rate. Symmetrical book stacking. Just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence of 1947.
You're right, no human being would stack books like this.
Listen. You smell something?
In one of sport's greatest winning streaks, Edwin Moses won his 100th 400-meter hurdle race on June 16th at the Budapest Grand Prix track and field meet. In a streak that started in 1977 and ended in 1987, Moses racked up 22 more 400-meter hurdle wins, along with 2 gold Olympic medals. Bored with killing it on the track, Moses soon shifted his focus to bobsledding. He competed as the brakeman for the U.S. bobsled team at the
I wonder if,
Cup in Winterberg, Germany.
I wonder
He picked up a bronze. Turning the dial on the radio, on June 18th,
if
Alan Burns
Amazon
was fatally shot outside his home by 2 members of
Prime
the white
has
supremacist terror organization
Idiocracy, because that would be a good
At the trial
movie
for
to
his murder,
stream.
prosecutors contended that Berg was singled out because he was Jewish, and his personality provoked the anger of white supremacists. Director Oliver Stone's 1988 film adaptation of Eric Bogosian's play Talk Radio would later draw inspiration and storylines from Berg's life. Now for a notable movie first. After complaints about violence and gore in films such as Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins, the Motion Picture Association of America modified their film rating system on July 1st with a PG-13 rating. Suggested by Steven Spielberg, the PG-13 rating came with the advisory that parents are strongly cautioned to give special guidance for attendance of children under 13. The first film to be released for this rating was Red Dawn a month later, on August 10, 1984. Not only were movie ratings changing, but so too the drinking laws. On July 17th, President Reagan signed the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, a law requiring states to raise their drinking age to 21 or face a 10% cut to their federal highway funding.
Really?
Every state complied. In late July, America let the games begin as the 1984 Summer Olympics kicked off at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum.
In the name of the athletes, I promise that we shall take part in the Olympic Games, respecting and abiding by the rules that govern them.
Opening ceremonies included O.J. Simpson, Sam the Olympic Eagle, Jetpack Guy, and a badass Olympic song by John Williams. These Olympics will be the most financially
And me
successful
does not
modern
want to
Olympics,
fucking pay
serving
the
as a
rent
model
or
for
buy
future games.
this movie.
That said, decades later, we're still waiting for
Because I
personal
think at some
jetpack
point I've
technology.
already bought
Not
this
cool.
movie
While
before,
the
and
money was good for
that
the
just
Olympics,
would make me
not
very
so much for one of
annoyed.
its key sponsors, McDonald's. Marketing executives started to worry that the "When the U.S. wins, you win" campaign could backfire when the Soviets, East Germans, and several other communist nations boycotted the games. Team USA had very little competition and proceeded to crush them. Every time an American Olympian medaled, Ronald McDonald had to cough up free food and drinks.
Oh,
Team
what a
USA
disaster.
ended up winning 174 medals. While the Soviets still participated in the Olympics, they were always on America's minds. While sound checking for his weekly radio address on August 11th at 9:06 a.m., President Reagan was reported saying,
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It was Reagan's idea of a joke. He was just improvising off-air with National Public Radio audio engineers before he gave a speech announcing his signature on the Equal Access Act.
And now, here is the host of Jeopardy, Alice Trebek.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of all of us, welcome to America's favorite answer question game, Jeopardy.
For you toy nerds out there, Transformers made its television debut on September 17th in conjunction with Hasbro's toy line of the same name. It would take less than a year before the Transformers would crush the transforming robot toy market competition, GoBots. Meanwhile, the cartoon would go on to produce 3 animated spin-offs, 3 comic book titles, and a feature-length animated movie.
What's that universal greeting again? Never mind, I remember.
Transformers the movie would debut on August
right.
8th, 1986. No one cares about the Michael Bay movies. This would also mark the last role for the legendary Orson Welles, who voiced Unicron.
Rest in peace, good sir.
A new troops to command.
And nothing.
Wells would pass away 1 year later on October 10th, 1985. September of 1984 would see new TV shows that would shape 80s television.
Now, I'm telling you, you are going to try as hard as you can. And you're going to do it because I said so. I am your father. I brought you in this world, and I'll take you out.
5,000 street corners in greater Miami. And Gumby here's got to pick ours.
especially when they involve murder or attempted murder.
Turning to sports, Sparky Anderson's Detroit Tigers won the 1984 World Series in 5 games over the San Diego Padres. The series was informally known as the Fast Food Fall Classic, with Ray Kroc owning the Padres and Domino's pizza founder Tom Monahan owning the Detroit Tigers. That was until 1992 when the Tigers were bought by Mike Ilitch. Ilitch was also the founder and CEO of Little Caesars Pizza. Tigers, pizza, pizza. On October 26th, James Cameron's second film, The Terminator, premiered.
Where is she? Look, it may take a while. I want to wait this bench over there.
I'll be back.
Flash forward
Such
to
a good movie.
1991 when Terminator 2 Judgment Day debuted.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. You forgot to say please.
During the filming of T2, James and star Linda Hamilton would start a relationship only to have it end in.
I'm assuming that'll do for a please.
Hasta la vista, savings. President Reagan trounced Walter Mondale, the Democratic candidate, on November 6th in the 1984 U.S. presidential election. Reagan would sweep 49 out of 50 states with almost 59% of the popular vote over Mondale and his running mate, Geraldine Ferraro.
There's something wrong with your imagination.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
McDonald's served its 50 billionth hamburger on November 20th, but it wasn't grilled by some high-as-balls teenager. That honor went to McDonald's president and CEO, Ed Renzi, who flipped the patty at New York City's Grand Hyatt Hotel, amidst throngs of TV reporters, journalists, and even a high school marching band. The burger was eaten by Richard J. McDonald, one of the founders, who cooked burger number 1 in San Bernardino, California, 36 years earlier. On the same day as America celebrated the billionth burger, scientists began searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. Tom Pearson of San Francisco State University signed a deal with California's Secretary of State, establishing the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or SETI, which included 100 scientists among its ranks. 5 days later, on November 25th, 52-year-old William Schroeder became the second human recipient of the Jarvik 7, an artificial heart named after its inventor, Dr. Robert Jarvik, MD. 18 days after the transplant, Schroeder suffered the first in a series of strokes, eventually leaving him in a vegetative state. Schroeder died on August 7, 1986, of a lung infection, 620 days after receiving the Jarvik 7. In late November, musician Bob Geldorf assembled 37 other musicians in a Notting Hill recording studio to record Do They Know It's Christmas, intended on helping famine relief in Ethiopia. Flash forward to December 3rd when the song was released, and it went to number 1 in 16 countries, raising over £8 million. New York was the first state to pass a law which required vehicle occupants to wear seatbelts, a law that came into effect on December 1st.
Cats have 9 lives, children only 1. Help them live that life. Buckle them into a car seat. No one wants a child to become a memory.
On December 2nd, more than 4,000 people were killed and 200,000 more injured after noxious gases leaked from a pesticide plant operated by a Union Carbide subsidiary in India. The incident would later be known as the Bhopal disaster. Over 40 tons of vaporous methyl isocyanate, hydrogen cyanide, monomethylamine, carbon monoxide, and other chemicals were released after an explosion. Flash forward to 2011. Now, with more than 15,000 people who had since died from the effects of the gas, India issued notices to Dow seeking payment of $1.7 billion, which was on top of the $470 million already paid, due to the lingering effects of the poison. In mid-December, Howard Cosell retired from the Monday Night Football broadcasting booth. Our favorite Cosell moment came 8 years earlier, during a Baltimore Colts and Dallas Cowboys broadcast, where Cosell introduced nachos to America. A concession stand in Texas Stadium sent up a plate to Cosell, and he couldn't stop talking about it. Man, nachos do sound good right now.
See?
Just after Christmas on December 27th, geologist Roberta Score found a Martian meteorite while snowmobiling in the Antarctic. Renamed Allen Hills 84001, The meteorite is thought to be one of the oldest Martian meteorites, proposed to have crystallized from molten rock over 4 billion years ago, and it's thought to have originated on Mars during a period when water existed on the planet's surface. A notable birth, the chosen one, LeBron James, was born on December 30th in Akron, Ohio, near Cleveland, a city that suffered decades of sports heartbreak. At age 13, James would first dunk at a basketball game. And on June 19, 2016, James won one for the land, breaking a 52-year championship drought for the city of Cleveland.
Cleveland! This is for you!
1984 would end on a somber music note, when on the afternoon of December 31st, Def Leppard's drummer Rick Allen and his girlfriend were in a car accident on a country road near Sheffield, England. Allen tried to pass another car, misjudged a curve in the road, and crashed his Corvette C4 into a stone wall, flipping the car several times. Because his seatbelt was improperly fastened, it tore off his left arm at the shoulder. Doctors were able to reattach the limb, but the operation failed due to infection. And Allen didn't let that deter him. 3 years later, the one-armed drummer returned with Def Leppard on August 3rd in 1987 with the album Hysteria. It was the band's first #1 album and their highest performing release ever. 1985 was ready to hit 80s prime, a year when we would see a young boxer take his first professional fight, rock and roll being put in the hot seat, and a new game system take America by storm. But you're going to just have to wait until next time. Coming soon, 1985. So what do you think? What do you miss about 1984? Let us know in the comments below. But while you're at it, check out some of these other 80s videos.
All right. So we will pick up with weird history next time. Thank you so very much, guys, for being here with me today, this evening. It's been it's the longest stream I've ever done. Almost 8 hours. I mean, honestly, like on a day off, like I'd be sitting here watching whatever and playing video games and whatever, like, you know, the same thing, but at least I can do this with you guys, and hopefully in the future we can actually have a chat and I can respond and talk to you guys back and forth. That would be nice. But until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys stay safe, be happy, be healthy, but most importantly, be happy. Like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week.